Fueled by Death guest.
Yay, you're here.
Yay.
It's good. No, I mean, after, meeting you last year and having you on the show and everything that's happened through that entire year, it feels just so right that you get to be here in person and we get to talk to you a little bit. And I just want to start by saying thank you so much for coming and seeing Death Wish and wanting to talk to us again.
Well, thank you for inviting us. I mean, it's hard to believe it's been a year.
I know.
Actually, that scares me.
I know. And I mean, obviously for our fans out there who have been following the story, we know that we had you on the show. We joked about drinking coffee in space, and how it would be fun to get Death Wish coffee in there. And from the moment we said that, you were like, that's a good idea. And you were the reason that kept that idea even going. Dustin and I never thought in a million years like that would have ever
Don't
happened.
speak for me. I expected it.
Oh, you expected it. I gotcha. No, for real though, and you kept that idea alive, and thanks to your efforts and wanting to spread the love of our coffee to your friends. It's shout out to Serena, who's way up there. Hi, Serena. And the crew of Expedition 56 now. We never in a million years thought our coffee would be orbiting the Earth every 90 minutes, and it is, and it's pretty.
I gotta ask, how did that happen on your side? Like, what did you do to help get Death Wish coffee on board?
Well, I think the stars just aligned, if we can say that. It's
Yeah.
because
Only 5 puns are allowed per show.
All right,
by
so
the
there
way.
we go. We're done now. Yeah. But really, because Serena and her husband are coffee connoisseurs.
Yeah.
And before I even met you guys and we even started talking about coffee, when I knew she was assigned and was going to fly, I knew I would want to send something to her in a care package. And so it all just kind of worked out, I think. We worked out how to get the coffee to the food lab, and I had to kind of step back from that.
Yeah.
And you guys just did your thing. And then I think the question came up, well, can we say our coffees in
Right.
space? I'm like, okay, you don't want me helping you with that because it'll just bog things down and complicate it. And the best thing you could do is work directly through, the folks at the food lab, get in touch with
Which was awesome, by the way.
they are great. They are so good. And then I'm pretty sure they put you in touch with the legal or PR people or whomever.
Mm-hmm.
And, the fact that you guys walked away with, like a blessed official press release kind of piece of paper and all of that, I think it's so cool because it's the kind of, to me, it's the kind of precedent we need to start setting with the way we communicate about space.
Yeah.
What I loved about you two when we talked before was that it's not like you had the day before we got on, online together that you were like scrambling to figure out, okay, what's a space station?
Right.
Yeah.
What does NASA stand for? There was none of that. You guys genuinely were excited about it. Knew probably know more than I do about it.
No.
And no, I'm
Definitely
pretty sure.
not.
And then, and the fact that outside of, NASA and what is going on for real in space, there's a real love of the sci-fi and the creativity and excitement that space exploration can generate. And, and if we can drink some coffee and share coffee in space to get that kind of word out too, I think it's a good thing.
Well, we always say here at Death Wish Coffee that we want to fuel people through what they're doing. And I mean, as a kid, I used to look up at the stars and, even with Mir and all that, like in the early space station, knowing that people were up there and doing things, it's like, wow, humanity is doing things that I can't even fathom. And now with people living and working up there and this amount of science that comes out of, just every single mission is awe-inspiring. And to know that our coffee gets to fuel them to help do that, I can't even express it.
Yeah, it's soul moving. I gotta ask, did anybody send you a care package when you were up on the ISS? And what did they send you?
And
who was it?
Well, my family, and
good.
included things, and my son and my husband for sure. And one of the things that I got sent was these chocolates that I really love. This chocolate coated ginger that's really delicious. And what I thought up there would be really neat about it is, we get candy sent to us, and we have, you have sweet and you have savory things and all that, but the chocolate coated ginger is really delicious because it kind of mixes both of that. But
I know
that's what I remember.
I know we've talked about this a little offside of the podcast, but it must really be like Christmas when you guys are living there for months at a time and you get food that isn't on the menu.
Yeah.
Like, or drinks that aren't on the menu. Like that really must be like everybody must be really excited about that.
Yeah, it's really nice. And you know, as crew members, we get to pick our own, I don't know what they call it now, bonus food or something. And when we had the space shuttle, it was really great because you'd get like a couple of these kind of big bags of things. And one of my crewmates, Frank Davina, who Belgian guy, and he and his wife did probably the best job of picking out those kinds of foods of anyone. And of course, everybody shares their stuff, but he had things like, you know, sausages and cans of lump crab meat and cheeses and all the stuff that you would bring out and share that just wasn't part of the normal menu either.
So cool.
Yeah. And then I think at one point we talked about the big green pickle thing.
Oh, can we talk?
Yeah.
We talked about this off podcast. Can we talk about this story? So, okay, let me preface this. When I got to go down to NASA to watch the SpaceX rocket, the Falcon 9 rocket, launch into space with our coffee on it to go to the International Space Station, and I met up with you. Before that, I got to go and tour NASA food labs. And one of the things they were talking about was some of the foods that they send up there, like astronauts love to get a fresh piece of produce or fruit because that, I mean, you're so used to eating freeze-dried stuff forever, you know, something that's fresh is really, really awesome. So, but they have to be careful because some stuff smells. And the NASA Food Labs was talking about how they don't like to send up bananas because a banana will make the entire space station smell like a banana.
Yeah, you put
forever.
anything
Yeah,
next
for a
to
long
a banana,
time.
even if you have like a bag of chips and you put it next to a banana, somehow those bag of chips still taste like bananas. I don't know how that
And
works.
so I asked you if you remember bananas ever being up there, when you said you didn't, but you did tell this story about a pickle. Can you tell us the story again?
Yeah, my crewmate Jeff, in his care package, and apparently he loved, you know, like at the 7-Eleven, the big pickles in a bag.
Yeah.
Pickle in a bag. Oh,
Pickle in a
yeah.
bag,
Yeah.
and it's like a huge pickle, but it's just this bag of pickle juice too.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, honestly, we were all excited about eating the pickle, but the idea of opening it up was really kind of daunting because what do you do? I mean, who's going to
Just
suck down the
globules
pickle
of
juice?
salt water
What's going to
from
happen with
everywhere.
the juice? I mean, we had agreements that if you opened up a bag of food, especially if it had a sauce in it, you suck that bag dry because wet trash is really icky. And so, finally, Jeff decides to open this pickle and eat it. And instead of sucking down the sauce or finding somebody who would suck down the sauce, he took a towel and he just squirted out all the pickle juice into this towel. So now you have this white towel that is this greenish yellow, that fluorescent
Neon,
color,
yeah.
greenish yellow towel that's just soaked, and hangs it up in the corner of the station or one of the modules so the airflow will dry it.
That's how you
And that's how
do
you dry.
normal stuff,
Yeah,
yeah.
even, you know, your towels that you use after you take a bath or when you're, you know, sweating, and you know, all of that just has to get recycled into the systems which then generate clean drinking water from it. But you know.
yeah.
But anyway, he put this towel up there with the pickle juice, and it reeked. I mean, it just circulated through the station, and for days was this juice.
No.
And well, I remember when the way the airflow would go is it would come down through the U.S. segment, and then it would finally make it all the way down to the other end to the Russian segment and come through. And as soon as it did the first time, I remember Gennady Podolka, who was our commander at the time, he comes floating down. Just, what is that? What is that? You know, like looking for whatever the source of the, yeah.
So
that
needless to
was
say,
bad.
they probably don't
That was
send
bad.
bags of pickles up there anymore. I would
No,
think.
I don't. Oh, I don't know.
Oh, either that or they
Without
drink the
even
juice
knowing
now,
it,
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
please drain the juice.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
The pickle was good, but the juice was.
Was it worth
Yeah.
it in the end?
No, I don't
No.
think so.
No.
I don't think so.
Ends don't
I
justify
don't
the
think
means.
so. No, sometimes.
And we talked about in the last episode that we had you on how you were able to fly on the space shuttle, which I still think is one of, outside of the space station, is one of the greatest vehicles and achievements that humanity has made. I really do think, you know, this reusable craft, and we're working back towards that. In fact, as we're recording this, they just announced the crew who's going to be going up, the the next crew since the space shuttle who's going to be going up to the space station. Do you know any of that crew?
Yeah, I know all those folks. They actually announced 4 crews.
4 crews.
So yeah, so there'll be a first flight of both the Boeing Starliner and the crewed SpaceX Dragon vehicles. So they announced the first crew for both of those, and then they announced the second crew, which will be the folks that get to fly that vehicle for the first time, like to station and actually stay there for a little while. Yeah,
because the first crews, correct me if I'm wrong, they're just going, they're launching, docking, and then coming back. They're not getting off the craft.
Yeah, it's more just a test flight.
Just like we can do this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do you think, and this is kind of a question from your engineering side as well, do you think that we will be working towards a craft like the space shuttle again? Because these are more like the Soyuz, right? Like these aren't.
Yeah, these
like
are capsules.
Capsules.
So they're very much like what we remember of like Apollo days, what we remember or what we know now of the Russian Soyuz spacecraft. Yeah. Of course, they're advanced from the technology standpoint of things, but yeah, that's what they. I mean, you're laying. You are in this very small capsule. When they land, they'll be landing. I can't remember if they're both landing in the water or one's landing in the water, one's landing on the land. But like we did for Apollo and like we're doing for Soyuz. And I personally, I really hope we get back to something like the space shuttle.
Yeah.
And there is a company out there, Sierra Nevada Corp, that's doing a small lifting body.
I've seen artist representation of what they're working on.
Yeah. And they've got a cargo contract, so they'll be doing some cargo, and hopefully they'll continue their development so that they can have a crewed version. But I just think, human beings should come back from space and land on a runway.
Yeah.
Or land, even SpaceX is looking at for when they go to Mars, like you've seen the boosters come back and land.
Yep.
And that is just incredible. And
I never thought we could do something like that. That's insane.
It's super cool. And so, if you could be a person doing something like that, but I don't know, car crash into the ocean or the water is not.
Yeah, I was about to say, it seems like it comes with a whole new set of dangers and issues.
Well, that's the thing. I think the Soyuz spacecraft, they have done such an excellent job in terms of the safety of that spacecraft getting, people back, even if you are slamming into the desert. But when I think about landing in the water again, and Orion is doing this too, the bigger capsule Orion. Is doing this too, is landing in the water. And all I think about is, you just survived re-entering the atmosphere and making it back to Earth. And now you're in another potentially emergent situation by bobbing around in the ocean.
Last thing that you want to do is being in a vessel that's sinking and you're strapped into it. That seems like, I don't know, a nightmare. It seems really awful. Go there.
You talked about, on the first time that we talked with you on the show, about how almost magical it is to come back on the space shuttle, because you're touching down on a runway and it's just this nice way of coming back down. And we just recently saw you speak at SPAC, and you said that, which about the Soyuz, that I'd never even thought of before, that it's like a car crash. Did you come back on one of those? Or
no.
Did you train for that?
I trained for that. Our emergency rescue vehicle has always been a Soyuz on the space station. When I was first assigned to fly my first mission, it kind of went through every iteration as shuttles delayed and things. So originally I was going up on a shuttle, down on a Soyuz. And that would have been, with the manifest, that would have been like a 7.5 month flight, and then it evolved to Soyuz shuttle, and ended up shuttle, but which I'm very thankful for. Yeah. But I would have loved to fly a Soyuz too.
Yeah, I was about to say you didn't want to.
Really, I would.
You didn't want to try it out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Cool. Why would you not want to try it out?
Yeah.
And it's designed to take care of you.
Yeah.
It's just a totally different experience.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you ever? I find with a lot of strange new things that happen in my life, I end up dreaming about it. Do you ever dream about being in space and then wake up, being like, where am I? Am I still in space? Does that happen?
I do dream about it. I dream, and once I was there, I started. As soon as I was on station, your dreams, or at least mine did, shifted a little bit.
Oh, I bet.
To incorporate floating around through the station and launching and just working in space in general. I think the thing about dreams or at least mine, that really surprised me was, I mean, I have this vivid memory as a kid and through adulthood, before flying in space, of that dream where you kind of run and jump and fly and want to fly.
Yeah.
Love that
You know,
dream.
and sometimes you can, and then sometimes you can't. And in the dream, you're figuring out, you know, why can't I get off the ground today or whatever it is. And I had that all the way up until the time I flew in space, and I have never had that dream again, ever.
Really?
Since flying in
It's
space.
like you filled the void.
I
You did
guess,
it.
like
You
know,
ran and
yeah,
jumped as
to
far
space.
as you could. Yeah,
I
you
did
jumped to
fly in
space.
You
I
grew
know.
your wings.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. Another thing that you talked about at the talk that we saw you at was that you got to a point in your career where you retired from NASA a couple of years ago, and that was a big decision for you because, and I didn't know this, that you said you were in line to actually go and fly again. And you decided to retire because you wanted to pursue the other aspect of being an astronaut, allowing, you know, this knowledge to like come to the normal person. We talked about on the first episode how crazy it is. There's people out there that don't even know that there's people living in space.
It's a shame.
Or flying
Yeah.
in space.
Yeah.
You know, and we need people like you to you know, to educate us on that kind of thing. And I wanted
just
to talk
expands
about
Well,
the
we need people like you.
imagination.
That's what I love
Yeah.
about this too, is that you guys are excited about it.
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about this project that you're a part of, the Space for Art Foundation, which I think is so incredible. And we didn't get a chance to talk about this that much on the last episode. Can we talk about how this came to be, and especially with that awesome spacesuit that you guys created and everything?
Well, I think there was a little bit of an evolution of it, and if I go back to the very beginning, I think it was having the chance to paint in space, which was really fun. And then when I was considering this whole, do I retire, don't I? I knew I wanted to find a way to share the experience. Art just became this thing that seemed like probably the best mechanism for me, at least, to do it. And to go back to that painting in space and think about the inspiration I had there. And I think because I had done that, and people that were still working at NASA within the space station program knew that I was out pursuing the art thing. When they heard about this artist from one of the hospitals in Houston that was working with kids there on projects, and then he would always do these projects with kids and then create some ginormous collaborative kind of art project out of all of their work together. He did these big dragons and murals and wrapped buses. I mean, it was really, really cool. And his name is Ian Sion, and he approached NASA about doing something with space with the kids. And his initial idea was that he should go to space and be the artist in residence on the space station.
What a great idea. How
Because
could
why would you not ask that? That should be the first thing you always ask. And of course, he had to get talked down a little bit. And they targeted the spacesuits, and they just invited me to join them on this project. And so I got to, while I don't consider myself the artistic creator behind it at all. I did help them guide, what they did with the suits, how we eventually evolved from the first suit that was just done with kids' art at one hospital in Houston. Our third suit was made from kids in hospitals in all of our station program partner countries.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And that suit was called Unity. It flew to the space station. We had this global video conference with the kids in
So
mission
cool.
control and and that kind of. And we're getting ready to take that suit back to those hospitals around the world and let
So it's
them.
back. It's back.
It's
on
back.
Earth.
Yeah, it's back. And so that project, we saw within that project that there really is, space does inspire people to
Yes.
think of their future, think beyond the situation that they're in. And especially for these kids, it was really impactful for me to see how much they could almost, I think about it kind of like a meditation thing where they kind of transcended through doing this artwork. They were separated completely from this experience they were having in the hospital.
Yeah.
And they could think about their future, and they could imagine themselves doing something else. And they recognized that they were doing this as part of something much bigger. There were kids on the other side of the planet that were participating in it too. Yeah.
I think
So.
I think space and space exploration breeds creativity because I mean science fiction obviously.
Well, it just
Yeah.
expands the
But-
imagination to I can't believe that's it's possible for us to do this at humans. I still think that constantly. That's why it freaks me
I know.
out so much.
And I think that has a lot to do in the core idea of art, because I mean, at least in my mind, when I look at the space shuttle or even the Saturn V, that's art. That's somebody came up with that idea, and was like, I'm gonna make this happen. And sure, there's a lot of ones and zeros and a lot of math in there and all that stuff, but I mean, when it really comes down to it, that's humanity creating art that is functional, that did that. I mean, again, going back to being, when I visited you for the launch and getting to go to NASA Kennedy Space Center there and seeing the Atlantis exhibit up close, I not even lying, I cried walking into that room, because it is incredibly breathtaking to be in that room with something that has been created like that, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful machine that has been created artistically, for us to explore space and continue that creativity. And that's why I think Space for Art is such a cool thing that you guys have done. What other what's like the next steps for Space for Art? Because I know you guys just released this new logo and you've done 3 suits now. Like what else is there?
Well, we have 4 suits because our Russian partners that joined us along the way, they very excited about it. And this is what we want to see happen. It started at one hospital in the U.S. It's grown to, these participating hospitals around the world. We actually, in the 4th suit, which is called Victory, it flew to space and came back. And it was the Russian spacesuit company put it together, and it was a combination of kids from the U.S. and Russia that painted on this suit.
Cool. That's cool.
And they're working very closely with us. Alyona Kuzmenko, who was our partner in this, she formed her own foundation in Moscow called the Unity Foundation, and she is now in, I want to say, like 10 hospitals in the Moscow region with like 60 volunteers doing all kinds of like art projects, and with kids and adults. Her mom very sadly passed away from cancer, as that's how we met her.
Yeah.
And so with kids and adults, and they're doing not just, painting, but they're, helping women with makeup and hair and, all these things, but they're coming very creatively into the hospital setting. And through them, we're doing another suit called Dreamer, which is going to be all of the station countries. So all 15 of the station partners.
Wow.
We're going to have kids paint on that suit. The Russian agency has already agreed to send, and that's the Orlan, it's like the Russian version of the space suit.
Cool.
And so that'll go back up to station. We have some super top secret ideas that'll go along with that one right now that we're hoping that'll come to life.
Excellent.
And we've got the exploration suit that's in work, and that one, we're just trying to cover the planet. So if you guys know people in hospitals around the world, let us know. We want to get pieces to as many places as we can for kids to paint on it. Then exploration is going to be kind of this ambassador for Spaceship Earth.
Oh, wow.
So we want kids to realize they live on a planet. They're on their crew on this spaceship, and to, that whole interconnectivity thing, and get a sense of the fact that they're already in space. We don't need to send exploration to the space station for it to be in space.
Right.
And we got postcards to space that we're doing. I mean, all kinds of things, but it's all, to me, I think of 3 words when I think it's like space, art, and healing. And those are the 3 things that are coming out of all of it. And the momentum that we got behind us with just that first suit, the Hope spacesuit, and just seeing the power of bringing these people together that way was, I don't know. Really looking forward to what will come from it too.
That's so exciting.
Where do you see this going in like 5-10 years? What does this fully blossom into in the end?
Yeah, I think we have 3 things really. One is that we want to encourage, as we go around ourselves to these hospitals, or even to schools, we want to encourage more and more that these places will pick up on their own, or maybe develop their own Space for Art Foundation, or like Alyona did with the Unity Foundation in Moscow, and then just take it themselves and start doing more art and healing programs in their own areas. And we've seen that happen. We've got a young lady in Pakistan that's doing some things now in some hospitals there. So we want to facilitate or encourage that happening. We are looking at working with some some other foundations that are already in place that are doing research on not necessarily like pediatric cancer research or any of the issues that the kids are going through already, but looking at how does something like art with kids in a hospital facilitate healing, facilitate wellness. And there's a lot starting to go on with that. So we want to work in that area. And one of the reasons we want to do that is because the kids that we spent time with, I mean, I have vivid memory of this one young lady, 7, 8 years old, this conversation about, wow, you know, being an astronaut in space, it must be a lot like what I'm going through here when I'm in the hospital. And I'm thinking, how in the world? You know, this little girl is going through what you hope her and her family, like, never have to experience anything like it ever again in their lives. And she's comparing it to me doing something that I dreamed about, you know, being in space, doing as an astronaut. She's got, oh yeah, you know, you don't get to see your mommy and daddy the same way, and you eat different food, and your body's changing, and you're blah, 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 you're isolated. And I mean, I was like, you are right.
That's very interesting.
And so we want to consider or continue these things in the clinical setting. We always want to do that, but we want to look at it from the standpoint of what are we going to need to do for our astronauts, for people that are traveling further and further off our planet. They don't see Earth out the window anymore, which is a huge psychological, you know, connection to everything. But when you don't see Earth out the window anymore, and you're in a relatively small spaceship going to Mars or wherever, how are you going to spend your time? You know, how are you going to deal with those? Are you painting on your iPad? Are you in the holodeck? You know, what is it? You know, what is it that you do? And that's very much a creative, artistic kind of thing to consider.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's really cool. Again, that's why I think this is such an awesome program in general. Like, it breeds a ton of creativity on Earth, outside of Earth, and you know, and healing. And that's the greatest thing. You know, like I think even people who are just connected to this tangentially feel better.
Yeah.
You know, like, not even just like, oh, I'm suffering in a hospital. It's like, I just think it's one of those great things that. Yeah. I was excited to talk to you about. That has happened. A lot has happened since we talked the last time. So, and speaking of that, were you going to bring up something?
I was just going to ask. Let's say I'm some chump and
you are some chump.
I have a few extra bucks and I want to be a part of this.
Yeah. Well, you can go to the Space for Art Foundation Facebook page, which is, I think, just Space for Art Foundation.
Okay. Right here.
And there's a donate button.
Oh.
We just got that together, but
Nice,
there's a donate button there. There's a bank account that can accept it.
Great.
And the next thing we would be applying that to is the world tour to get the Unity suit back to the kids and the hospitals that participated, and also to get more children painting on the exploration and the dreamer suits.
So cool.
And you know, in addition to the painting sessions, the research, you know, all of that we want to see happen, we want to actually exhibit the kids' work here in different venues and formats and things too. So it'll help with that. But yeah, there'll be plenty of opportunities you come, and thanks.
Okay,
great. Excellent. No, we'll put out the word for sure. But I wanted to bring up at the end of here another thing that happened in the year since we have had you on the show. That one of my new favorite things that you got to be a part of, which was One Strange Rock.
Yeah.
I mean, I've loved everything that National Geographic has done in the vein of this kind of stuff, like Planet Earth and Blue Planet and those types of.
Well, they did that Mars series, right?
Mars
yeah,
Remember
there's
that?
another one coming. There's a second.
Oh, I can't wait.
Oh man, it was so scary.
Well,
That's a horror
that's starting
series
again.
for me.
That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, they're doing a whole nother. What is that called? Season. They're doing a whole other season
Wow.
of that.
Which was we've actually talked about it on the show before because it's like science fiction and reality in
Yeah.
the same
Yeah,
in the same
it's
vein.
perfect
and it's
mix.
very cool. But this is all reality, and it was the idea of taking 8 astronauts and having them give their perspective on our strange rock, which I thought was on paper a great premise.
Yeah.
How did you get involved with this? Because, I mean, the names alone, Darren Aronofsky and Will Smith and National Geographic, like, I mean, oh my gosh, like, how did you get involved with this?
Well, I think the first introduction to it was through Newtopia, which is Jane Root's company over in the UK. And, I mean, you know, it's so funny how you're completely ignorant of these other industries and wonderfully creative people that are out there when you're not, you know, right in the loop with that. And ever since meeting her and her folks, oh my gosh, there is really cool stuff going on out there, and the ideas that are being generated to try to do things like One Strange Rock.
Yeah.
And of course, then they partnered with, Protozoa and the Aronofsky and Ari Handel's group, and then Nat Geo came on board, of course. But yeah, just the story of Earth in a way that I don't think it's ever really been presented before, and I think it should be in every kid's classroom, quite honestly.
Wow.
But,
I hope they release it on like a Blu-ray with special
I think they are.
features
Yeah, I think
and
they
stuff.
are. Yeah,
because if you guys haven't seen it, go watch this because it's amazing, especially episode 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, what was the process of that like? Because I know they featured each one of the 8 of you in an episode. So with your episode, they obviously came to your house and featured you with that. But all of the stuff where you guys are like contributing to each episode, did you knock all that out in a day? Was that over a course of months?
No. So Nat Sharman, who was the guy who put together episode 2, he and his team came to Florida, and I think we did, that was either 4 or 5 like really full days, like from 7 till 7 at least.
Wow.
And that was in a studio and then out, in different places at my house, which really wasn't my house.
Right,
it was kind of my house. We were in transition at the time. And although it would have been an awesome house to have on the beach there in Indian Rocks. But anyway, so yeah, but it was a lot of that. What was really surprising to me was how much goes into a production like that. Like the hours and hours that we spent filming and everything. I don't think this even made it into the episode, but this one, I think we spent like half an hour filming me potting a plant, and the dirt falling through my hands, and the close shot, the wide shot, all of it. But then after you see what they put together, you realize, I mean, they know what they're doing, and it's just really beautifully creative in a way I had never seen before. And of course, with Darren and Jane and Ari and those guys pulling it all together, it's incredible. And the places they visited around the planet, I can't remember the number of sites that were, that they were on location with, but they take you to places that make you feel like you don't even necessarily feel like you're on Earth. It's kind of got this otherworldly feel to it that when you get that question about, do you think there's life outside of, of Earth, you're like, holy moly, why wouldn't there be? You got things living in places on our planet that we can't even consider, but there's life there. So
I forget where it was, but the acid lakes.
I think it's like Ethiopia.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Acid lakes.
Yeah, just lakes of acid.
And there's things living there.
And there's things in there living, but like the human beings that are like walking through it are in hazmat suits. Like we will die if we're there. Like,
what's in there?
These little bacterial like things that just survive there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
on
insane.
Earth. And but I mean, the way they shot it, it's just like you said. It's like
it's almost like you're walking on another
like,
planet.
This is another planet, and you'd be like, yes, it is. Of course it is.
Well, that's the thing. It could be. It's things living in very undesirable locations.
Yeah.
And this could be happening anywhere.
Well, and it's weird because I moderated a panel session at the World Science Festival, and it was about like alien life. What would alien life be like? And what's intelligent life? All of that kind of thing. And it occurred to me, it's like, wow, we always bring it back to ourselves.
Right.
Like we think of ourselves as life. Well, there couldn't be life on that planet because there's not an oxygen-rich and nitrogen-rich environment for us to survive. And we're like,
right.
Life doesn't necessarily mean us, you know, but we always look at it like, well, Mars is not habitable right now because we can't just walk around on the surface of it. But who knows what could be?
Right.
And that's a good point. And I always think aliens are, the way they depict them in movies or books. It's 2 arms, 2 legs, a head. I think if we find something out there, it's not going to be anything that we can really conceive of with our imaginations.
And we very arrogantly assume intelligence is us.
Right.
Right.
We do it here on our own planet too. Whether it's with the
like the orcas,
the orca or the whatever creature that shares the planet with us. We assume that
we are superior.
We are the intelligence.
Yeah, and it's not. I always harken it back to the original Star Trek series. Which was a great premise, but Roddenberry, to his credit, had that one flaw was that every alien race they came in contact was inherently human. They might be green or blue, but,
scaly.
yeah, but like it was a human
Weird-shaped
being,
heads
you
or
know,
something.
like,
Yeah.
and it's always that funny kind of thing. I did hear, speaking of One Strange Rock, that they are going to make a second season of that as well.
Yeah, I think so.
Do you get to be a part of that? Are they
I'm
going to do
crossing
8?
my fingers. I've heard that there's possibility. So
Cool,
we'll see.
cool. Because I
Yeah.
didn't know if like they were going to, maybe talk to 8 new astronauts.
I don't think we know yet.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, we're crossing our fingers for you too,
Yeah,
because
thanks.
that was. I just cannot say enough good things about that. Because again, it's one of those things that's out in the world that is educating people on not only the world that we live in, spaceship Earth, planet Earth, but also space exploration. Because just offhandedly, listening to you guys just talk about, viewing the Earth from the space station and your experience of, the different things that you saw on our own planet, but in space it's just incredible. And I personally learned a lot from that. And, I love this stuff. I research this kind of
Well,
stuff.
when you make something entertaining like that, it's just so much more absorbable. It's insane. And I can see something like well, in my day, you think about rolling in, the VCR TV table thing, right? And popping in the tape.
Yeah.
That was advanced.
Yeah, I know.
Those are
Like
the best
the film
days.
strip.
Right,
Those are the
right.
best days at school. Oh, when the teacher would wheel in the film strip, you're like, yeah.
You're like, oh, I'm sick of you. Just watch this and shut up. It's going to be this.
Yeah.
I truly believe that.
I mean, yes, 100% yes.
and if it's not, it should be.
And I gotta
I
say
would
too,
want to learn it if it was coming into the classroom.
right? And I gotta say too, for the makers of Newtopia and National Geographic, if you're watching this show, I want to see that potting plant footage in the special features. I want to see that 100%. If you spent all that time on there, we better get those.
Yeah.
I'm a special features junkie. I need that stuff for sure. Finally, I just want to ask you on space exploration, and we touched a little bit about like where you think we're going with our spacecraft. Where do you think the next step is with space exploration outside of the space station? Because it's still up in the air as to what's happening with the space station. In 2025, I think it is. It's going to be either retired or updated or however they're going to deal with that. Do you, from someone who's attached to this, do you feel like the play is to make something else or more of them, multiples of them, or do you think we need to be building off of what we've done?
I think there's a mix. I mean, I think that the space station, like low Earth orbit space stations, have a place in the future of exploration as well. And but I also think that I'm a moon person. I personally think that our next big step will be to get back to the moon, but with the idea that we're establishing a permanent presence there.
Right.
And we're establishing a permanent presence there that is about improving life here on Earth. How do we utilize the resources on the moon? How do we take things off of Earth and put them on the moon in a way that cleans up our planet a little bit too?
Yeah.
And then how do we use that? I mean, it's like this purpose-built space station there for us already. It's the high ground too, really.
Right.
And how do we utilize it to get us more economically, more effectively, efficiently, all those words, out to places like Mars and beyond.
Right, because most of the effort is just getting out of the atmosphere.
Right? Just getting off the ground is huge. And we keep thinking about, we're going to launch, from Earth to go to Mars. And that just just complicates the whole thing. When you could start doing this construction and launching from space, it's a lot less thrust that you have to. I mean, just to get to low Earth orbit, it's almost 8 million pounds of thrust.
Wow.
To just be able to fall around the planet at 250 miles up.
That's insane. Are there people thinking this as well, trying to enact an idea like this?
Absolutely, and I think they're thinking it both internal to the NASA, the JAXA, the ESA, the Russian Space Agency, the Chinese are looking at it too. How do we, as government agencies, look at expanding our presence outside of low Earth orbit? But also commercially, they're looking at it too. And,
Right. How cool would it be to take a trip to the moon?
I know.
That would be
I want
insane.
to.
I know.
There'd be
Sign
a
me
big
up.
museum there. That'd be
Sign me
amazing.
up.
Yeah.
I keep saying this, because I've been following space exploration since I've been a kid, and it was science fiction when I was a child. Like you either become an astronaut or you read a science fiction book about going to space. Like it's one or the other. Now, because of things like SpaceX and even Richard Branson and people like that, the idea of space tourism or just the normal person being able to go to space is becoming more of a reality. And I swear, if it takes me to be 70 years old, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go up there at least for just once, and because I have to experience it. It's too cool not to, and it's too cool to just be able to talk to you. For sure.
It's fun for me.
Before we end this, I have 2 personal questions.
Okay. Jeez.
One of them I asked before. It's pretty easy. I guess it's not that personal, but personal for me.
Okay.
Elon Musk, is he a evil genius or a technological saint?
Wow, I don't know if either one of those is a thing. I think there's definitely genius material going on there, and I think that it's funny because I think his motivation is not bad. I mean, I think there's if you look at the different things he's working on, all of them are really have this greater good,
like improving
kind
life.
of thing to it.
Except for the flamethrower.
Yeah. Just have to
Well,
name
that
it,
was just a
have to name
stepping
it something
stone.
different, right?
Well, he named it not a flamethrower.
Not a flamethrower,
so there
yeah.
you go.
So, but I mean, it's funny. My husband is, and you met Chris and talked
love
about
Chris.
this stuff. But if you look at some of these guys that are involved with like these next steps in space exploration, my husband believes you can look at them and how they're developing their ideas forward, and you can tell what sci-fi authors they read as kids.
Wow.
And Elon was definitely one set of authors, and you can look at Jeff Bezos, totally different.
Yes.
And the thing about Musk is I think that you look at him and he wants to get off the planet, he wants to get to Mars, but I get this sense of almost multiplanetary species because we might not survive here in the near term kind of thing. Whereas I look at a Bezos kind of attitude, and it's we need to get off the planet. We need multiplanetary species because in whatever billion of years when the sun sucks us up, that the Earth is going to be gone, but not necessarily because we're doing it to ourselves. And we need to separate ourselves from the planet more to get the stuff that's hurting how Earth survives for us to survive here off the planet too.
Yeah.
And it's just a different kind of approach to it. And I don't want to diss in any way what Musk is doing, because I think you look at just in the amount of time that they've gone from, we're going to launch cargo to the space station to the cruise getting announced yesterday for, Crew Dragon and those boosters coming back and all these things. A lot of what has just happened in this introduction of these new companies into the whole space exploration thing has been NASA has been able to partner with new partners in a way that allows us to do things, differently, perhaps in a, more expeditious way, or is allowing us to look at things that we maybe just really couldn't have internal to NASA itself.
Right.
And that's a good thing. And that's what I think people need to know too, is that this is not SpaceX or Boeing doing this on their own.
Right.
I mean, they are absolutely hand in hand with NASA, if not just from the financial budgeting, here's cash to do this kind of standpoint, it's from the expertise and resources that NASA has to provide to it as well.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Good answer. Great answer. Second question. I've had moments in life where I was leaving somewhere for a long time, right? And I couldn't help but to think, like, screw everything, I'm out of here. And I can't imagine what that feeling must be like when you're leaving the planet. What did that feel like the day before, the night before?
The minute before.
The minute before getting on that space shuttle was... I can't even put an imagination behind that feeling.
Yeah, well, it's not that. It's not like damn it, I'm out of here.
Yeah, like,
whatever.
screw you guys.
Yeah, screw them. Yeah.
Peace.
Yeah. Whatever it is, it's not that. I think you're really, really anxious to just do. You've been training so long to do it. I think you just genuinely are anxious to see everything from just what it feels like to doing the work up there. I think anybody that goes and does this, believes that the work, it's going to be fun. I mean, there's no doubt it's going to be fun, but I don't think that's why you do it. I wouldn't have strapped onto 7 million pounds of thrusting rocket fuel with a 7-year-old at home if I thought I was just going to have the joyride for fun.
Right.
And so I think there's that. Okay, this
strong
something,
sense of purpose.
something better hopefully is coming from this. The fear in all of it is for like there's people like the people that are sitting on the couch over there is because it is a lot more difficult to watch somebody.
Oh, I imagine.
You know, strap in and do this than it is to be the person.
Bungee jumping times a million.
Everything. Yeah. My sister knows that one too. Hey, I'm going bungee jumping tomorrow. Don't tell mom. But yeah, I think that's kind of the, you know, the piece in it is that you really feel like you're part of something that's worthwhile.
Right. Did you sleep?
I did sleep. Yeah, and I did sleep.
You must have woken up just like
you wake up ready. Yeah, you wake up ready. And there's a whole, you know, like the whole process that you've seen other people go through before, that like going and sitting in the recliner chair and getting all suited up, and you're like, you never imagine yourself sitting in that reclining chair and suiting up. That, you know, those kinds of things. I was like, wow, I did that. And now the whole thing is just this surreal blur of thankfulness for the pictures and video because and as I live vicariously through my friends and Serena up there drinking Death Wish in space.
That's so crazy.
Well, and it's just incredible. There's only been, you know, 500 and change of people like you who have actually left the planet. I think 570 some odd people at this point. When you put it in the perspective of humanity, that's
less than 1% of 1%.
Then 0.001% of 1% of 1%. Yeah, it's incredible the amount of ingenuity and creativity that has went into it, and people like you that have helped further that along. And I can't thank you enough for taking time to talk with us, not only talking with us, but helping us get our coffee into space. And, you know, and I'm so glad that Serena and the crew is enjoying it up there, and I'm just so glad to be your friend.
Well, you're welcome. Me
True
too.
honor.
You know, if I didn't like you guys, we wouldn't be doing this. Yeah.
Darn right. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This has been Fueled by Deathcast, a Death Wish Coffee Company podcast production. Thanks for listening.